But, as things go, they got pretty creative. The two of them didn't meet at the market anymore. They started meeting up elsewhere. Eventually, it came out that they were often hooking up at a hotel. The guy didn't even need to worry about paying for the room because Chalita had already taken care of it. She just couldn't seem to shake the hold the Arab man had on her. It had become an addiction. And Samha? He never turned down her invitations. After all, he got more than just a free place to stay. He also received a little extra cash on the side. Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into another real-life story that's pretty shocking. This one comes from Myanmar, specifically Yangon, where a married couple's life took an unexpected turn. After getting married, they quickly realized that their life together wasn't as perfect as they had hoped. The husband's many shortcomings started to push his wife further away. So, what exactly happened in this case? Let's get into it and find out. Before we dive into the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And feel free to share this with your friends. Now, let's get into it. This is the story of Chalita, a woman born in 1987. She's originally from Myeongtagar, but her family moved to Yangon when she was a teenager. Chalita's mom worked at the market, selling oranges and flowers, while her dad was a retired soldier who spent most of his time at home due to health problems. Chalita was the youngest of 4 kids and still lived at home with her parents. In 2014, Chalita started working as a cashier and waitress at a nightclub in Yangon, working late hours, from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. This job wasn't exactly what her mom had in mind. She was worried about her daughter working such late hours, especially in a place like that, where things could get risky for women. But Chalita felt fine. She was used to it, and her friends always made sure to take her home after work, so she felt safe. Still, her mom couldn't help but worry, even though it had been going on for years. To ease her parents' worries, they asked a family friend's son, Adisak, to look out for Chalita while she worked. Adisak, who was 34, didn't mind at all. He actually had a crush on her. Chalita's parents thought this was a perfect opportunity and decided to set them up. They figured that since Chalita was already 30, it was time for her to settle down. Plus, Chalita had never introduced a man as a boyfriend, so they thought maybe she was still single and ready. Even though Adisak was only a school bus driver, he seemed like a good match. At first, Chalita wasn't too keen on the idea of an arranged marriage. She didn't really connect with Adisak and was happy being single. But her father, who wasn't in the best of health, kept insisting. Her mom, who had a bit of a short temper, also pressured her. For months, Chalita was bombarded with questions like, "When are you getting married? And where's your boyfriend?" Eventually, she gave in, but on one condition. She wanted to keep working at the club after marriage. Her parents agreed, and the wedding took place on November 15, 2017. Fast forward, and Chalita soon discovered that her new husband, Adisak, owned a huge house he'd inherited from his parents. It had a swimming pool and a jacuzzi, and Adisak had quite a bit of savings. Even though his younger sister still lived in the house, Adisak was the sole heir to the property. This made Chalita, who had been unsure about marrying him, feel much better. She figured maybe Adisak worked as a school bus driver just to keep busy. Chalita, who had been hesitant at first, was now excited and smiling all the time. Within 2 months, she decided to quit her job and settle into her new role as the mistress of the big house. But even with all the luxury around her, Chalita felt empty. She wasn't happy in her marriage. She often felt that Adisak wasn't able to satisfy her needs. She confided in her mom about this, but her mom just told her to be patient. Maybe Adisak was tired or stressed, she suggested. But after 3 months of marriage, Chalita couldn't buy that excuse anymore. Adisak was often out at night, leaving Chalita feeling more and more isolated. Seeing her daughter's frustration, Chalita's mom suggested that Adisak should try therapy. He agreed and began seeing a non-medical health professional who recommended traditional herbal treatments. In mid-February 2018, while accompanying her mother to the market, Chalita met a man named Samha. He was the owner of a perfume and health oil shop, and he was 40 years old, originally from Saudi Arabia, and had been living in Myanmar for 7 years. Chalita and Samha hit it off right away, and before long, she started visiting the market more often, not just to see her mom, but also to see Samha. Since Samha was a widower, Chalita became even more interested. Eventually, she confessed to him that she was married but wasn't happy in her marriage. They kept in touch, and it didn't take long for people in the area to catch wind of their budding romance. Word of their relationship eventually reached Chalita's mom, and she was furious. She forbade Chalita from visiting the market again, but that didn't stop them. They got creative and started meeting up outside of the market, often at a hotel. Chalita would pay for the room, and Samha, who didn't mind the arrangement, would show up. She seemed to get hooked on the attention from the charming Arab man, and Samha never turned her down, not only enjoying the free hospitality but also receiving some payment on the side. After about 3 months of their affair, Chalita's husband, Adisak, finally found out. One of his friends told him about the secret messages between Chalita and Samha, and it set him off. Adisak was furious and went straight to his in-laws' house to confront his wife. Chalita, realizing things were about to spiral out of control, apologized and explained that she was unhappy with her marriage. Despite feeling betrayed, Adisak was unwilling to separate. He confessed his love for her and even asked her to stay, promising that he had transferred all his savings and the house into her name. Chalita, feeling guilty, apologized and swore she wouldn't see Samha again. Within a few weeks, it seemed like their relationship was back on track. But what Adisak didn't know was that Chalita was still secretly meeting up with Samha. Samha knew that Chalita had lied about being a widow, but he didn't care. He was in too deep. Then, on June 3, 2018, Chalita came to Samha with a troubling request. She asked him to help find someone who could be paid to commit a crime. She said she needed someone to teach a friend a lesson for not paying a debt. Samha, being savvy, recorded their conversation and agreed to help, but made it clear that he didn't want to be involved directly. Chalita agreed to the terms. On June 5, 2018, Samha introduced Chalita to a 26-year-old man named Chayen, originally from Pakistan. Samha didn't know Chayen very well. He had found him through a job search site where Chayen had advertised his willingness to do anything for money. The two connected, and Chalita made a plan with Chayen to take care of her husband. The plan unfolded on June 11, 2018. Around 9 p.m. Chalita took Adisak for a walk in the city park to get some fresh air. She told him she needed to find a bathroom, and while she was gone, Chayen, dressed in a face covering and a black jacket, approached Adisak. Without warning, he fired 2 shots at Adisak and immediately fled on a motorcycle without a license plate. People nearby heard the shots and quickly called the authorities, while Chalita reappeared with fake tears, pretending to be shocked and devastated. Unfortunately, Adisak was pronounced dead at the scene. He was only 35 years old. Meanwhile, the police were still struggling to figure out who was behind the crime. What they did know, however, was that 2 weeks later, Chalita, Adisak's wife, had inherited a house, land, and a fair amount of money from her late husband. This windfall led her to reach out to Samha. She asked him to marry her and even offered to pay for the entire wedding. But Samha didn't believe that Chalita had that much money. To prove she was serious, she transferred $4,500 to him. Samha just laughed and said, "That's not nearly enough to get married." So, Chalita sent more money over the next couple of days, bringing the total to nearly $19,000. But even after that, Samha wasn't convinced. He told her he needed to check with his parents, then disappeared and was unreachable for a week. His shop in the market was also closed, and Chalita started to feel like she'd been scammed. Determined to get to the bottom of it, Chalita did some digging and found out where Samha lived. She went to his house, but he wasn't there. Instead, she was greeted by his wife and son. Furious and heartbroken, Chalita exploded at the wife, even threatening to report Samha to the police. The next day, Chalita filed a complaint, accusing Samha of lying and scamming her. Samhar was arrested on August 1, 2018. But during questioning, Samhar dropped a bombshell. He confessed that Chalita was the one who had masterminded her husband Adisak's murder. Apparently, Cheyenne, the hitman, had spilled the beans to him. The police, now with this new lead, tracked down Cheyenne, who had gone into hiding. They finally arrested the 26-year-old man on August 14, 2018, in the Nyongon area, where he had been hiding out at his girlfriend's parents' house. As the investigation deepened, it became clear that Chalita had been the driving force behind her husband's death. She was arrested while trying to get a passport to leave for Thailand. She tried to deny knowing Cheyenne, but he still had all the incriminating messages between them. Despite her protests, Chalita was arrested, though she still refused to confess. In court, during the trial at the Yangon High Court, Cheyenne admitted that Chalita had paid him about $10,000 to kill Adisak. However, she had only paid half up front and promised to pay the rest once she married Samhar. Cheyenne was getting frustrated because Chalita kept delaying the wedding, making it unclear when she would be able to pay him the rest of the money. He also needed the cash to marry his girlfriend. Faced with the overwhelming evidence, Chalita finally confessed. She told the judge her marriage had been unhappy, that Adisak wasn't the man she had hoped for, but she didn't want to divorce him. Instead, she planned to kill him to get her hands on his inheritance. On December 30, 2018, the judge found Chalita guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced her to life in prison. Cheyenne, who had been given a life sentence, saw his sentence reduced to 25 years. Samhar, despite having clear evidence that he didn't want to be involved, was still convicted as an accessory to the crime. He was also charged with fraud for the money Chalita had transferred to him. Samhar was sentenced to 6 months in prison. What lessons can we learn from this story?